4,600 years ago. A civilization without iron tools, without wheels on construction sites, without modern mathematics, stacked 6 million tons of limestone into a shape so precise that modern engineers still struggle to explain it. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest structure on Earth for nearly 4 millennia. Nothing came close. Nothing even tried. And to this day, no one can say with complete certainty exactly how they did it. To understand the pyramids, you have to forget everything the modern world has taught you about progress. You have to abandon the assumption that ancient means primitive, because the civilization that rose along the banks of the Nile River was anything but. By 3100 BCE, Upper and Lower Egypt had unified under a single ruler. The Nile flooded every year with clockwork precision, depositing rich black soil across the valley, feeding millions, and creating a surplus of grain that allowed an entire society to organize around something bigger than survival. And that something was eternity. The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with the afterlife. They believed the pharaoh was a living god, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. When the pharaoh died, his body had to be preserved, protected, and housed in a monument worthy of that crossing. The earliest versions of these monuments were flat, rectangular tombs made of mud brick known as mastabas. They were modest, functional, forgettable. But around 2670 BCE, an architect named Imhotep changed everything. Imhotep served under Pharaoh Djoser during the Third Dynasty. He was a priest, a physician, and a builder. And when tasked with designing Djoser's tomb, he did something no one had ever attempted. He stacked one mastaba on top of another, then another, then another. 6 layers of carved stone rising from the desert floor in a stepped formation. The Step Pyramid of Saqqara. It was the first monumental stone structure in recorded history. Not wood, not mud brick, stone. The entire complex surrounded courtyards, temples, ceremonial halls, was enclosed by a limestone wall over a mile in perimeter. It was a city for the dead, built to last forever. And it worked. Over 4,700 years later, it still stands. Imhotep had proven that stone could be shaped, transported, and assembled on a massive scale. He had opened a door that could never be closed. Within a century, Egypt would walk through it and reach for the sky. Around 2580 BCE, Pharaoh Khufu ascended to the throne during the Fourth Dynasty. He commanded the construction of a tomb that would surpass anything built before or since. The Great Pyramid. The numbers alone are staggering. 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite. An average weight of 2.5 tons per block, with some interior granite slabs weighing over 80 tons. A base covering 13 acres. Aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a single degree. The entire structure rose to a height of 481 feet. Perfectly symmetrical, perfectly proportioned. Covered in polished white Tura limestone that would have gleamed under the desert sun like a second star on the horizon. Construction is estimated to have taken roughly 20 years. And contrary to popular myth, the builders were not slaves. Archaeological evidence uncovered in the surrounding workers' villages shows that the laborers were fed, housed, and medically treated. They ate beef, bread, and beer. Their bones showed signs of healed fractures, meaning they received care when injured. These were skilled workers, organized into teams with names, proud of what they built. Thousands of them. Working in shifts, quarrying, hauling, lifting, and placing stone with a level of coordination that rivals modern industrial logistics. And they did it with copper chisels, wooden sledges, ramps, levers, and an intimate understanding of geometry that would not be formally written down for another 2,000 years. But here is where the story deepens. Despite centuries of study, despite every technological tool available to modern archaeology, the exact construction method of the Great Pyramid remains unresolved. There are theories, many of them. The straight ramp theory suggests a single massive ramp leading from the quarry.
It was not magic. It was not Oz. The spiral ramp theory proposes an internal or external ramp winding around the structure. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin presented compelling evidence of an internal ramp system in 2007, supported by microgravimetry scans that revealed a spiral-shaped anomaly within the pyramid's mass. Others have proposed a combination of external ramps for the lower levels and internal systems for the upper tiers. And then there are the stones themselves. The granite beams above the King's Chamber were quarried in Aswan, over 500 miles to the south. Each one weighs between 25 and 80 tons. They were transported by river barge during the annual flood, then dragged overland to the construction site. The precision of the interior chambers is extraordinary. The King's Chamber is built from solid Aswan granite, with joints between blocks so tight that a razor blade cannot be inserted between them. The sarcophagus inside was carved from a single block of granite, hollowed out with such accuracy that the internal dimensions vary by less than a fraction of an inch. No modern contractor would guarantee that level of tolerance, and yet it was achieved in the Bronze Age, without power tools, without laser levels, without computers. That is the turning point in the story of the pyramids, not the discovery of how they were built, but the persistent, humbling realization that we may never fully know. The Great Pyramid was not built in isolation. Khufu's son, Khafre, built the second pyramid at Giza, slightly shorter but elevated on higher ground to appear taller. Alongside it, the Great Sphinx was carved from a single limestone outcrop, the largest monolithic statue in the ancient world. Khafre's son, Menkaure, completed the trio with the smallest of the three pyramids, clad partially in Aswan granite. Together, the Giza complex became the most recognizable architectural achievement in human history. But pyramid building did not last forever. By the end of the Old Kingdom, around 2180 BCE, Egypt's centralized power had weakened. Resources dwindled. The age of monumental pyramid construction faded into memory. Later, dynasties built pyramids of their own, smaller, less ambitious, often made of mud brick that crumbled within centuries. None came close to the scale or precision of Giza, and when the Greeks arrived centuries later, the Great Pyramid was already ancient to them. Herodotus visited around 450 BCE, more than 2,000 years after Khufu's reign. He recorded what he was told by local priests and guides, some of it accurate, some of it legend. But even he could not hide his astonishment. The Great Pyramid was named one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is the only one still standing. Every generation believes it stands at the peak of human capability. Every era assumes it knows more, builds better, thinks sharper than the one before. And then you stand before something like the Great Pyramid, built by people who measured the stars without telescopes, who moved mountains without engines, who created perfection without precision instruments. It was not magic. It was not Oz. It was human will, collective effort, and a belief so powerful that it bent stone to its purpose. The pyramids are not just tombs. They are proof that when a civilization commits itself fully, its labor, its genius, its faith, it can create something that outlasts everything. Every empire, every language, every god that came after, 4,500 years of rain, war, earthquake, and erosion. And still they stand, not because they were built to impress, because they were built to endure.